Hey everybody, welcome to week 2. We're going to get this week started by going through the morning news clone assignment. So over the next 2, 3, 4, maybe even screencasts, I'm going to be walking through a complete clone of the morning news. So I'm going to go into a lot of detail on this, more than I would have expected you guys to do in this week. But I'm also going to use this to introduce new topics and new tips and tricks as we go through this through the rest of the semester. So I think this is a good site to use as kind of a just a general template to introduce new topics. So to get started, we're going to go through the basics of getting a site set up and kind of getting our basic layout and structure going. So before we do that, we need to create a directory structure and get a little organization at the basic level in our app. So right now I'm in the terminal, and I'm inside of my TC349 directory. So if I were to use the ls command, which lists all the different files in my files and folders in my directory, you'll see I've got a README file and a final folder. And like I said before, this is my GitHub directory. So this is the same directory I'm using to push up to GitHub. So the first thing I need to do is create a folder for week 1. So we're going to go make directory, mkdir, week 1. If you're just on your desktop, you can just create a new folder in your TC349 directory called week 1. And then inside week 1, we're going to create another directory called TMN for the morning news. So now let's back out. So now, because this is a Git directory, I can type git status, and I can see that we are in fact in a we are in fact in a Git repository, and nothing new has changed. I've added some directories, but Git doesn't really care about directories until we put files in them. So let's do that, and let's get started on this clone. So I'm going to change directories into week 1 and then the morning news. And what I'm going to do here is use the touch command to create an index.html file. So I always start projects with an index.html. That should be fairly obvious why. This is kind of the default HTML file on most web servers. So it's a good place for us to start. Touch is just a simple Linux command that updates the updated at date on a file. And if the file doesn't exist, it creates it so it can update that date. So it's really handy for making new files. So we're going to go ahead and create that, and now if I open TextMate, so I'm using this mate command, which is going to open TextMate. You are going to want to open this directory in whatever text editor that you have. So I'm going to open this in TextMates, and here you can see I've got my index.html file that doesn't have anything in it yet. And actually, I'm going to add something real quick. Let's see, doc type. So my text editor does a lot of autocomplete. So you're going to see sometimes a lot of tags appearing rather quickly and things like that. I'm just using TextMate's autocomplete facilities. So that's what you're seeing. So let's go ahead and select an HTML5 doc type, and let's add a head and a title. And let's save that. Just adjust here. Okay, so I want to head back to our repository for a second here and head back a few directories back into TC349. So when you're using Git, you want to operate Git kind of from the root directory. So we always want to be in the TC349 directory when we run these commands. So let's run our git status command again and take a look at what we have. So now you can see something's changed. It says on branch master untracked files, and we have week 1 /. So that's a little misleading. What has actually changed is within week 1, there's another directory called TMN, and within that is an index file that's changed. But Git, it's a little confusing how Git, how it tells you about that. But trust me, it's right. So what we're going to do is we want to add this file to our repository queue. So we want to add this to the repository so Git is tracking it, and then we want to queue it up to be committed. And you don't have to do this after every time you create a file. Usually I just come in and do this at the very end after I'm done working, but I want to show you guys this right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to do git add star. And what get add star will do, it'll just add any untracked or changed files to your commit queue. And for right now, just for simplicity's sake, I recommend before you do a commit, just always type get add star, and that'll make sure you have all the changes ready to go in your commit. So nothing should happen there, so we'll go get status again, and we'll see what we're doing. So now you can see what's changed. We've gone from red to green, and it says on branch master changes to be committed. And now you can see the changes that are going to be committed. And so now I can type get commit, and then you always have to add a message, and we'll just go initial upload of index file. Okay, so now we've committed that into the repository. So now if we do a get status, we can see that our branch master is clean, which means we don't have any more commits. But what you do notice here is that it says your branch is ahead of origin master by 1 commit. Origin master is GitHub. That's where our repository is living up in the cloud. So once we're done committing locally, we want to basically sync our repository with the one on GitHub. So this does two things. It pushes your assignments up to GitHub, which you need to do to turn it in. But what it also is doing is it's kind of backing it up into the cloud. So now GitHub has a copy of your code and you have a copy of your code, which is in effect the beauty of distributed version control. And that's why we use this. So to get this up to GitHub, once we've got a commit or multiple commits, all we have to do is type git push origin master. And depending on how you have your Git keys set up, this might ask you for a password. Mine sometimes does, but I've used it today, so it's not going to ask me. And now, if we type another Git status, we should see that there's nothing to commit, and we're on our branch master. Okay, so in part 2, or this is actually going to be like part 1.5, we're going to dive into the morning news clone.